We're going to do the bills in this following order. Senate Bill 705, which is JPR, departmental. Senate Bill 709, JPR, departmental. Senate Bill 11, Senator Sidner. Senate Bill 249, Senator Kramer. Senate Bill 545, Senators Muse and Jackson. And finally, Senate Bill 718, Chair of the EEE Committee. Okay. All righty, so Tripoli, it's kind of like a city in North Africa. Okay, Senate Bill 705, and we have joining us the delightful Chrissy Nizer. Chrissy, how are you doing?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, and it's 4 minutes, so.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, for the record, I'm Chrissy Nizer, MDOT Administrator, and here to testify in support of Senate Bill 705. I do want to take just one moment to acknowledge the sadness I think all of us in transportation feel after the horrific crash that happened yesterday. Everybody in transportation is certainly thinking about those families, and I know the legislature shares that, and so I just wanted to publicly acknowledge our support. In 2013, the legislature had the wisdom to recognize that when someone has just lost their spouse, the surviving spouse should not have to pay that $100 title fee that you traditionally pay. Both chambers at that time unanimously passed the legislation, but unfortunately the way the current law is written, it only applies the waiver for spouses when both individuals are listed on the vehicle. So since implementation, we've encountered many situations where obviously you only have a vehicle titled under one spouse's name. In fact, between April 21 and April 2022, there were over 5,000 individuals where a surviving spouse was charged that $100 title fee because we had no choice. The costs are further compounded when the surviving spouse owns multiple vehicles, and obviously they're paying multiple times. We think Senate Bill 705 is a common sense solution to offer that parity to our customers, regardless of whether they jointly title the vehicles or title it in one spouse's name alone. I will add that the Senate did pass this bill unanimously, and we ask for your positive support for Senate Bill 705.
Wow, terrific. Any questions for Ms. Nizer? Seeing none, you leave unscathed. No one signed up in opposition. Thank you very much. Okay, but wait, she's not done. Senate Bill 709, JPR, and again, Chrissy Nizer.
Well, good afternoon again. For the record, Chrissy Nizer, MDOT Administrator, here to discuss Senate Bill 709. This bill focuses on improving and maintaining the pipeline of qualified CDL drivers, and I know that's been a focus of all of us through the last several years. So it creates two things that we think are both efficiencies. We have been looking at the skills test and really reduce the time to get an appointment, but we also want to make sure that any additional barriers are removed for our CDL drivers, and so we're continuing to work with large employers throughout the state and get their feedback, as well as increasing our employer testing program. In an effort to further offer convenient options for CDL holders, Senate Bill 709 allows MDOT to accept the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration Medical Examiner's Certificate as proof of meeting the standards for license renewal. As many of you know, current law requires that CDL drivers get a medical certificate every 2 years. That includes a vision test. And so when they get that vision test, we can allow that to meet the vision requirement for every 8 years. And as everybody knows, the screening that they're going to do, the exam they're going to do at the doctor is much more thorough than what we do in terms of the screening at the MBA branch office. If there is a vision condition that is found in terms of that medical review, we would be notified because they'd no longer be eligible for the CDL. So there's no risk in terms of us licensing somebody. But it would allow about 11,000 CDL holders to be able to renew without actually coming to the MBA because they could use that medical certificate that they could have on file. The second piece is to try to get our new commercial drivers onto the books, and so what we want to do is change the learner's permit, which is currently 6 months, to a 12-month holding period. We think that's important because you may have heard from some of your constituents there's a new federal requirement, entry-level driver training requirement that everybody has to take if they've never been licensed with a CDL. As a result, it is extending the time that it takes for somebody to feel comfortable and get through those requirements. Right now, if an individual is not able to get through everything within 6 months, you have to go through the whole process again. And that could be a barrier and cause somebody just to stop at that point and not to move forward. In fact, when we looked at the data, there were over 5,000 individuals who had their commercial learner's permit reissued, and in some cases, they just didn't complete the process. And so we think that additional time, which is consistent with federal standards. A few years ago, the federal government allowed states to increase the length of time to 12 months. So we think that being consistent with that requirement allows us to be more fair to our new drivers and hopefully get more drivers on the road, as well as for our existing drivers with the benefit for the medical certificate convenience. So with those two changes, we'd ask for your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 709.
Okay, terrific. Again, no opposition. Any questions for Ms. Neiser, Administrator Neiser? Okay, now you really are free to go.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's turn now to Senate Bill 11 and the land of a full public hearing here for a bill that has lots of friends and enemies. But the first friend to testify will be the senator himself. Senator, welcome back to the committee. Great to see you.
Thank you very much. And since I have 4 minutes, I would just say that my written testimony was submitted to you all, and I hope that you take a look at that. Some time ago, this General Assembly gave the authority to local governments to set up speed cameras. Speed cameras could be set up in either work zones or school zones, but we've made some special exceptions along the way in Prince George's County as well as on 83 in Baltimore City. And in fact, in Prince George's County and Montgomery County, we've even had them, those particular counties have the ability to set up residential cameras. Today's testimony is about our school zone camera program, which I believe is being abused by some of our local governments. In fact, if you look at the testimony in opposition submitted by Baltimore City, they strongly oppose. They don't just oppose, but they strongly oppose. And why do they strongly oppose? Well, because they're misusing the program. And what do I mean by misusing the program? This program was set in place to ensure that our children and their families, as they were attending schools, were going to be safe. There are a number of counties that I believe set up their speed cameras the right way. They put them up near the schools where the children are. However, and for those of you who are from Baltimore City, or may have been on Baltimore City, if you were to drive down Route 40, I happened to see a speed camera, a school zone camera. I'm trying to be careful with the school zone camera. And I reached out to the Department of Transportation and I asked them, what school is near this camera? What school is this camera for? They gave me, I think it was Mary Rodman and Wildwood. Those schools were probably Wildwood was way beyond the half mile that we allow school zone cameras to be set up. Mary Rodman was probably just at the half-mile point, but for any person who's driving down that highway, there's no way that you would have known that you would have seen a school zone camera there because there's no schools nearby. School zone cameras, from my understanding, this General Assembly's intent was to make certain that they were protecting children and families who were going to school. So what did I do? Initially, I put in legislation to reduce the school zone because again, the way that it worked, in order for a school zone camera to be put up, it had to be within the school zone. Got a lot of pushback from that, talked to state departments of MDOT about it, and what they shared with me was that they had rules. So I took their rules and I codified their rules because guess what? Most jurisdictions already followed those rules. In fact, when I went on a search yesterday, when I saw the opposition in the file, I found out that Calvert County, in fact, if you look at ordinance number 30-15, it clearly says, it says within their ordinance that a school zone is hereby designated upon the portion of each county road being 500 feet or less from the boundary of a school, and it goes on. That's what this bill does. It makes certain that we put the cameras close to the schools to make certain that the children are protected. Now, the opposition, they're talking a lot about school zones. If you want the school zones to be at a half mile, I don't care. What I care about is the placement of the cameras and making certain that jurisdictions like Baltimore City aren't placing them on roads where they know that they'll get more revenue, but they aren't protecting children. This is about protecting children, not about what a lot of this opposition says. With that, I say, look, we have an opportunity to provide oversight. If the local jurisdictions if they want to have cameras wherever, follow the lead of Montgomery County and Prince George's County. Set up a residential program, stop calling them school cameras. With that, I rest.
Okay, I'm going to go to the other favorable witnesses and favorable with amendment witnesses, and then we'll entertain questions. So let me start with the virtual witness, Philip Mellerson, who is with the Department of Transportation. You know what, Senator, why don't you just keep sitting up there? I think that would be the best thing.
Thank you.
So do we have Philip Mellerson? Okay, we're going to hear from him. He'll have 2 minutes. Up, and there he is, City of Baltimore, Philip Mellerson, favorable. Mr. Mellerson, welcome to the committee. You have 2 minutes, sir. And you're muted. You need to unmute. There you go.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry, sir. How you doing today?
Not at all. You have 2 minutes starting now. Welcome.
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I just want to speak on behalf of, as far as being, for, or I'm sorry, actually opposed to, I guess, the law which was being set forth today. I just want to give a brief understanding that the school zone means a designated roadway segment within up to a half a mile of any schools, grades kindergarten through 12, which happen to have school-related activities, which include travel by students in or from school or to school, foot or bicycle. That also relates to, picking up the students of school buses and other related school activities. 1 second. With that being said, the reason why we have these cameras in place outside of the 500 feet is because the main purpose and mission of a goal of our department is to provide safety throughout the whole entire roadways throughout the city of Baltimore. Not only just within 500 feet, but also creating that halo effect throughout the whole entire city. Brief studies also have been conducted and showed that when we place these cameras, within a half a mile, several corridors throughout the whole entire city are affected. And the engineering studies of potential violation counts, which have been assessed, have been in favor for the decrease of deterrence of erratic traffic behavior throughout the city of Baltimore.
Are you good?
Yes, sir.
Before I go to the next person, just a quick question for you, Mr. Mellerson. Are you representing your entire agency or just yourself?
The entire agency, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next, let's go to James Titus, who has signed up favorable with amendments. And there you are. Okay, Mr. Titus, welcome back to the committee. I think you were here earlier this year.
It's been a decade, but in any event.
Somebody who looks like you then, okay.
I'm Jim Titus, a proud father of a sophomore at Eleanor Roosevelt in Greenbelt. Senator Sudner has spoken about problematic speed cameras in Baltimore and has suggested that the solution is to apply to Baltimore the basic standard for setting speed zones that already applies in the other counties. Now, if that's the goal, I would suggest that you consider my amendment, which does that and nothing else, by extending the SHA's 500-foot school zone requirement to all numbered highways, whether they're managed by SHA or not, in contrast to the current wording, which would extend it to all roads in the state. The Senate committee did not fully consider the implications of extending this requirement to all the local roads. No one's complaining about speed zones that don't even have speed cameras, and yet this bill will require traffic studies in rural counties that don't even have speed cameras. The committee, there's been this assumption, the Senate committee had this assumption that and you also heard that the best place to put a camera is right by the school. And indeed, that's what SHA does, and that may make sense for the high volume, high traffic, multi-lane highways that SHA operates. But most kids who go to school walk more than 500 feet on local roads. Often the hazard is more than 500 feet away. The cameras need to be where the hazard is. And so most local cameras are actually more than 500 feet from the school, meaning that this bill would deauthorize most cameras on local roads. That wasn't the intent of the Senate. I don't think that's the intent of the senator here. It shouldn't be what you do. And yet, if you want to accomplish the senator's goal, I suggest that you could adopt my amendment, which accomplishes that.
Okay, let's go to questions. First question goes to Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for being here. It's nice to see you. I have a question, though. There's quite a bit of testimony written and apparently oral testimony that was had in the Senate against this bill. I just wondered, are there any favorable, are there any municipalities or counties that have a favorable point of view of this? Bill?
As I noted, and thank you for the question, Calvert County has adopted just the state standards that are reflected in this bill.
Okay, so Calvert County is...
They have not come in and said that they're favorable for this, but what I'm saying is what's in this bill is reflected in their ordinance.
I see,
Ordinance
okay.
3015.
Okay, thank you. And also, another question, if I may, and that is, do you know, are there any, do you know of the radius of where school buses service, like what's the distance from the school that you can get a school bus in most counties?
I do not know that, but again, I want to make certain that I'm very clear in my argument. And it's not that speed cameras don't work. I understand that speed cameras work. I'm fine with speed cameras. But what I'm talking about is the placement of the cameras that would be in the best interest of our children, ensuring that they have the protection. I believe it's in northeast Baltimore City, where I think in your area, we had an accident in a crossing guard, and I believe a student may have been hit. Again, if you had speed cameras closer to the school, because I believe the closest speed camera from what I believe we found was like 0.3 miles away. If you had it closer to the school, I would guarantee you that you would have had traffic slowed down because no one's looking to get tickets. This is not an anti-speed camera bill. It's a bill about the safety of our children.
Yes, sir, I understand. Thank you.
Next question goes to Delegate Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Sindor, for bringing this bill. Can I clarify, is this a statewide bill?
Yes.
Because Baltimore City was mentioned often, and
right.
respectfully, there are a lot of other jurisdictions that do oppose. So I just wanted to clarify, it's statewide?
It's statewide, yes.
Okay.
And the reason that I'm talking about Baltimore City is because Baltimore City strongly opposes. So no, you're right. There are a number of other local jurisdictions that oppose this, and why? I mean, if you look at the fiscal note, main opposition comes from MML as well as
Right.
MACO.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Jurisdictions- Yeah, those jurisdictions stand to lose a good bit of money depending on the placement of these cameras.
I understand, and I guess I want to ask you, if I am speeding on a road where a school is, if I'm understanding your bill, you're saying it's better to have it closer to keep accidents from happening versus farther to start to slow people down before they would get into the more direct vicinity of the school, thereby probably causing less harm, right? If 1,000, maybe it's 1,000, I don't know, yards away, I know, the camera starts coming. I have to start then slowing down and then get into a school zone so that I'm slowed down, versus if it's closer, then I'm already speeding potentially at a rate that I could then still do more damage or hit someone within that school zone. So I'm just trying to get an understanding of the distance as you are stating it that would protect more families at school. I guess I see it slightly opposite, that the closer the camera is, the potential for an accident is more likely because you're coming up on the camera.
Yeah, I disagree on that point.
Okay.
And the reason that I disagree is because from my experience and from my observations, what people do, when they see the camera, they know they're approaching the zone, they slow down. Once they get a certain distance beyond, they speed back up. So them being placed further away from the school does nothing for the school because the people would have already slowed down at the very edge of the school zone.
And I hear that, and that certainly makes sense. I just worry about the opposite. If they're so close and someone is speeding, is there a possibility that someone could be slowing down for the camera, but then also potentially causing an accident, could potentially hit someone?
If 500 feet is too close, make it
I mean, I don't know what
make it
the
1,000,
right
but the
feet-
question is, what does a half mile do for those students at that school?
And that's what I'm trying to determine. If people stop when they see a camera,
And then speed back up once they get past the camera.
they'd be right in the zone of the school, and therefore, to your point, would actually hit someone.
That's assuming that children are a half mile away from the school. Most of your children, they're being dropped off at the school on these buses.
Well, again, let's go back to Baltimore City. We don't have buses. Kids tend to walk to school or take the MTA, so.
And if we're talking about Baltimore City on Hilton Parkway, what schools are nearby this camera that is on Route 40, just
I mean-
beyond? Again, it's Mary Rodman and it's Wildwood Parkway. Children aren't walking in that area.
Well, I
But
know
again,
there's.
what I'll say is, in Baltimore County, my experience is they cite their cameras closer to the school. And essentially they follow what state policy
Sure.
is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. I guess I'm still a little bit confused about this because a lot of our students in Howard County walk, I think the walk zone is up and over a mile. So wouldn't those kids need the safety further out as well?
Sure, but again, the question is whether or not, I think if you're talking about where the majority of the children are, they're going to be closer to the school than they are further away, correct?
Yes.
So it's my view is that you move the cameras closer to where the majority of your children are going to be.
Okay. And is there something in the law that prohibits those cameras from being in both places?
That prohibits?
Right. In other words, couldn't they put one closer up and one further away?
They could, but this is the issue. That's the issue right there. And again, I'm gonna have to go back to Baltimore City. What they will do is they will put them on highways where they know that you're not going to see students, but you're
Yeah.
gonna find more traffic. And again, the question is, what is this program for? If you want cameras just to be protecting or slowing down speed, then fine. Pass a bill, have the residential use. You can do that. I mean, 2 counties have already done it. But if you're going to designate something as a school zone camera, this is something that we've done. We've given local jurisdictions the authority to do that. When they step out of line, what are you going to do? Well, if they're misusing it, then and our intentions are to protect children, then I think it's our job and incumbent upon us to figure out how we do best for the children.
No, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the idea that if it's on a highway where nobody would be walking to school, that does seem a little different. I'm just concerned about the kids that walk from
I
a considerable
understand.
difference. All right, thank you.
And I agree, I'm concerned with them as well, but if a jurisdiction sees a money cow on a street that children aren't using and it falls within the school zone as it's currently designated, we have some local jurisdictions that rather than protecting the children, they're going after the revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Senator.
doing?
You mentioned that Baltimore County places their school zone cameras closer. I've seen in Montgomery County. I don't know all of the school zones, but the ones that I've seen are closer as well. Do you have a sense of the other jurisdiction? You mentioned a couple of cameras in Baltimore City that were farther away. Do you know about the other jurisdictions?
That's a good question, and when, at the time, when I first introduced the bill over in the Senate, I reached out to try to get additional information, and some of that information was extremely difficult to come by. Again, I think, to Montgomery County's credit, you use your work zone cameras, you use residential cameras, and you use school zone cameras. So the safety is there, and your intentions within that county is certainly clear. But there's some jurisdictions that aren't as clear, and they misuse the authority that we've given them.
Well, I'm trying to dig in a little bit deeper when you say some jurisdictions.
I'll
So
speak
we've
to
talked
Baltimore
about the
City.
city, we've
Right.
talked about Baltimore County, we've talked about Montgomery County, and I'm
Right.
just trying to find out if you know anything about any of the
No, I
other
do
jurisdictions.
not. I can't speak to any, no.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that concludes the questions for the supporters of the bill. Let's go to the opponents. And the first signed up is Sarah Sample with Mako. Is Sarah here? Oh, there you are. And Daryl Carrington is also signed up. Why don't you come on up? And Bill George, who's with MML, so why don't you come up as well? And then after the three of you, I will go to the online witnesses. Okay, welcome back to the committee. You have 2 minutes, whoever wants to go first.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Darrell Carrington, Carrington Associates, LLC, here on behalf of Census Gatso. We'd like to thank Senator Sinor for being so generous with his time, but we are respectfully here in opposition to this bill. We believe this bill is sending a terrible message at a time in which none of us can listen to WTOP and not hear about someone who was killed. For St. Patrick's Day, I spent my time in the evening talking with law enforcement about a child that was struck and killed right near one of our high schools. We certainly have children that walk for up to a mile to get to school. We need to protect them, and we need to protect them in any way we can. And this is just another tool in the toolbox that we use to try to make sure that we're keeping our children safe. I appreciate some of the questions that were asked. I want to make sure that there's a point that really gets emphasized here. Some folks think of this as like, this is like some type of a money grab. Year over year, your revenue goes down because people change their behaviors, and that's exactly what this is meant to do. Change behaviors. It is crazy out there. I mean, we're all seeing it. We're all seeing it. I mean, people racing by us, cutting in front of us. I mean, it has gotten terrible out there. And every week we're losing somebody that we're hearing on the news because of reckless driving and speeding. There was someone in Montgomery County that killed someone, and they found out that they had in excess of like 40 or 50 outstanding violations. These people are dangerous. And we have to do everything that we can to try to protect not only our children, but ourselves as well. I mean, you're trying to let your child off and somebody's coming speeding by, you're afraid that they're going to rip the car door off on your child as well. So I really urge the committee to consider how the public is looking at this, the message that we're sending. And I thank you for your time and ask for an unfavorable report.
Okay, who'd like to go next? Sarah?
Yep, I'll go ahead next. Thank you to the chair and members of the committee for having me here today. My name is Sarah Sample, and I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties. And I do just want to define what the function of this bill is effectively. So this would change the default radius of a school zone from a half-mile radius around a school to 500 feet around a school. And to go outside of that would take a traffic engineering study, and that would be in every single one of our jurisdictions for all of our schools. It would require taking down existing infrastructure, and this is not just the cameras. This is signs, this is speed bumps, this is all kinds of road infrastructure that would have to be changed because, this is now no longer a school zone. I think, one thing that, we really want to point out is that these are areas that have to remain safe. And we've talked a little bit about bus service, and bus service does not run in school zones. This is where you have kids walking, scootering, getting to school in a lot of different ways, and we are in a situation where we've got bus shortages. So the first neighborhoods that are going to lose that service are going to be adjacent to the school zone. So this would be decreasing the radius at a time when the need for safety is actually expanding outside of what is existing. And I know we've heard a lot of conversation about where cameras are placed, and based on how I just described the function of the bill that I've confirmed with State Highway and Maryland Department of Transportation, this isn't just adjusting a location for the speed cameras. This is adjusting the fact that we can make this area a school zone at all, and how we can do it. And so I think that is incredibly serious and a little bit scary. And so we would urge a favorable or an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 11, fortunately.
Bill, welcome back to the committee.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Bill George with the Maryland Municipal League here in opposition to Senate Bill 11. My thoughts may be a little disjointed, but I want to hit on a couple things that I heard as part of prior discussions rather than repeat my colleagues' points. In shrinking the size of the school zone, there's been a lot of discussion around the placement of speed cameras, which is obviously a big part of this. But one other thing that's not as well known is that within a school zone, municipalities and counties have the ability to drop the speed limit even further to 15 miles an hour. So by shrinking the school zone, not only are we restricting where we can place the cameras, but also where we can limit the speed limit even further than on our other public roads. Secondly, in answer to Delegate Foley's question that Delegate Terraza touched on, I have in front of me some of the walk radiuses for the various school boards. Frederick County is, for elementary school students, 1.25 miles. For Howard County, pre-kindergarten through 5th grade is 1 mile. 6th through 8th grade still can't drive, 1.5 miles, and for high schoolers, 2 miles. I mean, this is well outside the current school zone, and yet these kids are walking, and biking, and scootering to school. Yes, I will concede that many of them are getting rides from parents, friends, that sort of thing. But I mean, I drive by Annapolis Middle School every day, which has a school zone camera right in front of it. And the train of kids walking to this school is way more than 500 feet. I mean, I can't tell you how long it is, but it's right along Forest Drive. And just another point of, to give you a little bit more context, it takes about 2 minutes to walk 500 feet. It takes about 20 minutes to walk 1 mile. So 2 minutes, think about how far you can walk in 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden, no school zone protections exist. I find it hard to believe that there aren't kids walking more than 2 minutes to school. With that, I ask for an unfavorable report. Thank you.
You know, I think I'm going to go, there are a lot of people who are signed up in opposition, but you represent probably, I mean, everybody represents a valid point of view, but let me go to questions, because I know that most of the opposition will be in the buckets of people that you represent. So, Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I don't know the answer to this question, but in just looking at the basis of your opposition, and I'm no fan of speed cameras either, but how about if they put an additional camera? Is that permitted? Say they left it where the one out where it is, could they put another one in tighter to the school? Is that permitted at this point, or is that not permitted?
Thank you very much for the question, Delegate. And yes, you are permitted. To the point that the delegate made, if we have one that's, let's say a 1/2 mile outside, that doesn't prohibit us from having another one that's within 500 feet. We can certainly do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for MML. I realize that you've done some research about walk distances for schools. Have you had an opportunity to talk with Senator Sidnor, and do you know have you looked into what jurisdictions that he's referring to that are potentially misusing the school district, school zone rules?
Sure. So I can speak for myself. Yes, I had conversations with Senator Sidnor primarily during the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee debate on this bill. And I think that we kind of reached an understanding that we have significant disagreements on the policy behind this. And I frankly have not had any conversations with him since on that. I can't speak to which jurisdictions he has identified as problematic, but I think based on his testimony, he's focusing in on 1 or 2.
So you haven't done any research regarding the problem that he mentioned?
No, because frankly, I have not had it brought to my attention of any municipalities that he's aware of that are acting outside of the current law.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next group of witnesses who are in opposition. Let's go to two people who are virtual, Selena Benitez and Melissa Schlegsguth. Boy, I'm really mispronouncing your name. So let's go first to Selena Benitez, whose name I don't think I'm butchering. Madam Mayor, welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Selena Benitez, the mayor of the city of Mount Rainier. And as you have heard, I side strongly against SB 11. I'm actually standing right behind where one of the streets that our kids take every morning and afternoon to get to school, and it has a camera. This is a street that even as an adult, I am very wary to cross, and allowing a camera, to be honest, has to allow for the drivers to start slowing down. We have 2 elementary schools in the city of Mount Rainier, and I will tell you that what this bill does, it reduces significantly so much that even them not getting to the end of the block and they will have left the school zone. To me, it's not just dangerous. As a city, we strongly oppose it. And as a parent of elementary school child, I also oppose it. So if people do not want to have cameras because they don't want to have citations, then don't speed. But the life of our kids are in danger, and they should not be valued over a speed camera ticket. I will tell you that this bill is dangerous. We strongly oppose it. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead on it. But please come to the municipalities heavily. The kids that attend the schools are walking, and we want to encourage people to walk and bike to school in order to help with our green infrastructure, but also with our green goals. And I feel that, unfortunately, we have not come to municipalities where heavily populated, where amount of kids are greatly who walk to school, and they're mainly for low income in the apartments. So this is a punishment to those people that cannot afford to ride a car and that heavily take transportation. So I ask for the members of this committee to have an unfavorable support for SB 11. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Melissa, you're next, and please tell me how to properly pronounce your last name, because I hate mispronouncing people's names. Is she there? Okay.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Melissa. Tell me how to properly pronounce your last name.
Melissa Schweisgut.
Schweisguth. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the committee. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, there's a timer, thank you. So I wanted to ask for an unfavorable position on this bill. I am a resident of Hyattsville. I walk, I bike, I run, I also drive through many school zones. And I am very concerned, as other speakers of other opponents have said, that this bill is very dangerous. I live in Prince George's County, where school bus service is not available for children who live within 1.5 miles. So again, as others have said, the current half mile does not even cover the current walk zone for many of these children and their parents, or the folks who are driving to school. All of those individuals need to be safe. I used to live in Tacoma Park. They have crossing guards farther than 500 feet from the school, because there are state roads, there are arterial roads between state roads that people speed through, and they want to make sure that children get through those crosswalks safely. So it's not the case, as Senator Schneider has indicated, that you can assume the crossing guard is only in front of the school. Those crossing guards are often in other areas of the community. They're throughout the walk zone to get our children, their parents who are walking, rolling, safely home, and guide drivers safely through those intersections. The sponsor, Senator Snyder, has said it's about the placement of the cameras. Then please tackle the placement of the cameras. Do not shrink the entire school zone. Although you will allow 500 half miles a maximum, you're creating undue burden for municipalities and jurisdictions who do not have to follow SHA's, bottom of the barrel standards, who can set their own distance based on what they know about their roads and their walk zone. So please maintain the current law. The law does not need any changes. Please provide an unfavorable determination for this bill. Please protect our children and all those who are walking, biking, and driving through school zones. Thank you very much for your attention, your good questions so far.
Thank you. Let's go to the last three witnesses opposed: Jeff Lemieux, Liam Davis, James Turner. Tell us who you are and who you're representing. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. I'm Jeff Lemieux, here as myself, but
Okay.
for also part of a loosely knit bike advocacy coalition from Prince George's County.
Great. Liam Davis, Legislative Affairs Manager, Baltimore City Department of Transportation. Thank you for having us again.
James Turner, Baltimore City Department of Transportation.
Testifying, I need to know something. Two of you who are representing the Baltimore City Department of Transportation, are you representing yourselves or the entire agency?
So we are representing the agency and we are speaking on behalf of the administration. There was an error in the sign up. So Philip Mellerson's testimony, he was intending to sign up as an unfavorable.
On behalf of himself only?
He's our ATVS division chief at City DOT. His intention was to be on to answer any technical questions that come up.
Oh, so he was signed up as favorable? Okay, all right.
Yes. And we apologize, I am aware of
Okay,
that, and I'm sorry for any confusion that may have caused.
Okay, yeah, all right. And that's why I asked for you to identify whether you were testifying yourself. Okay, so let's start with Jeff Lemieux. Jeff, welcome to the committee. You start with 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a slow talker. Would it be okay if I gave the committee members just a one-pager of my remarks, just a handout? Just go ahead and talk. Okay, I'll leave them here if it.
Do both.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to give an example. Earlier testimony talked about the speeding problems, and I wanted to give an example. You'll see a picture on that flyer, which was a car that almost ran over my wife a couple weeks ago, and the full video link is on there. I encourage you to type very carefully if you want to type that in and see the video, because if you type one letter wrong, you might end up in a place you don't want to be. But I'm here to ask for an unfavorable report. We think this is an anti-speed camera bill precisely when speed cameras are most needed. In Prince George's County and in the District of Columbia, bike advocates have joined with others to oppose routine traffic stops for minor infractions because of the potential for abuse there, the fact that we've had police violence associated with those things. And so really all that we're left with is engineering and speed cameras to help slow people down in our neighborhoods and on our business corridors. And engineering is tough and expensive, and the State Highway Administration has cut through Greenbelt with 8-lane roads that the students do have to cross at Eleanor Roosevelt High School, at Greenbelt Middle School, large roads on Cherrywood Lane. I can say as a bike rider in our area that students do bike to work much more than 1 mile. And that the bike lanes in my community are much safer due to the speed cameras. It was a drag strip on Cherrywood Lane before they put in the cameras. And the other thing I'd like to just mention, if you don't mind, is, this is part of an issue of who should have control on public safety, the state or the locality. And I know those sorts of issues can be fraught and difficult, but I'd encourage you to side with the localities on this one. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Who would like to go next?
I will be speaking on behalf of City DOT. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Liam Davis, Legislative Affairs Manager, Baltimore City Department of Transportation. Before I get started, I do want to say I have the utmost respect for Senator Sidner. We have worked on legislation in the past, and I do enjoy working with him. That being said, I do take issue, and I think the administration takes issue with the alleged, the city being alleged misuse of the program for automated speed enforcement. We follow the state law. I want to be very clear. We follow the law that is on the books. And the cameras do make our streets safer, and they are critically important to making our roads safer for students and really all road users. Based on our preliminary research in preparation for this bill, if the bill were to pass, it would impact 87% of our camera deployments. If we were forced to pull, re-advertise, replace cameras, the communities that requested this would be in a complete uproar. Our roads would be less safe. And I feel like a lot of attention is on Baltimore City right now, and it's important for folks to understand the city is unique. No other county equivalent is designed in the density and the manner that we are, the corridors and the neighborhoods being so tight together. We also have a program in Baltimore City called School Choice, meaning students are allowed to go to any school in the city. And in part because of that, we have over 27,000 students that use the MTA bus system daily. So they are on the major corridors. They are crossing the major roads where a lot of times we have placed these speed cameras. They are walking. 500 feet is not enough. 500 feet doesn't even oftentimes get you from the center of the school building off of the school property. So again, I want to reiterate, we are in opposition to this. It would make it harder for Baltimore City Department of Transportation to make our roads safer. Thank you.
Mr. Turner.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I won't add on to what Liam says, but I'm here for any questions if you guys have them.
Okay, well, we have a question from Delegate Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do know this is not a local bill, but I guess this would be for anyone from a different jurisdiction outside of Baltimore City. If this was not, say for example, if this was focused just on one jurisdiction as a local bill, would you still be in opposition? I'm just curious.
The question for me?
Or whoever.
I think so. I would definitely think this is an anti-speed camera bill as opposed to a pro-child bill. And my impression is that the Senate debate was confused and a little bit chaotic on the impact. And I think that this bill is at the very least not ready for prime time, and it could be both expensive and dangerous. Even if Prince George's County were accepted, where I live, I would like to think that the state would really take a deep breath on this one before moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Stein. Madam Mayor, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, we'll also be in strong opposition, even if it was just talking about Baltimore. And the members of Baltimore also discussed, very in detail why is it that's important for them to have the cameras. So yeah, we'll still be standing strong in opposition.
Okay. Thank you very much. Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess this question is for either Mr. Davis or Mr. Turner. So you're saying that the large majority of your speed cameras in school zones are between 1/10 of a mile and half a mile from the school, in the school zone.
That is correct.
And so I assume that for each placement of a camera, you've made a determination that the location, which in many cases this sounds like is closer to half a mile out, is in the best interest of safety for the children at that point?
Yeah, so there's a number of factors that go in. Sometimes, so the cameras that we usually deploy for speed cameras are the boxes. So we have to have, part of what's factored in is you need to have the available line of sight in public right-of-way. And that's not always going to line up within 500 feet. There's going to be parking that's in the way. That's why a lot of times in the city you'll see them placed in medians, because those are clear areas of right-of-way where there's good line of sight for the camera.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Liam, something that you said caught my attention. You said something about where the cameras are placed or where the community has asked for them. So that sounds like, is the city trying to sort of get a twofer out of this? The community wants speed cameras in this area and it's within the school camera zone, so we can get both benefits?
So they do have, to your point, Delegate, they do have a dual benefit in the sense it makes it safer for the children going to and from school, but it makes it safer for everybody. And you can request a speed camera study via 311 in the city. And I do want to be clear, in the city since COVID, pre-COVID, we averaged 300 to 400 traffic calming requests per year. That has spiked to over 1,400 a year for calendar year 22 and calendar year 21. So the neighbors, the residents, they are very concerned about the rate of speeding and reckless driving.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. That concludes the public hearing on Senate Bill 11. Let's go now to Senate Bill 249. Senator Kramer, welcome back to the committee.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and all the smiling faces here in the committee. Good to be here. It's been a while since we were having in-person hearings, so good to see all the smiling faces. Ben Kramer here to introduce Senate Bill 249. This one's going to be pretty easy peasy, colleagues. With the passage of recreational cannabis, we are going to definitely see an increase in driving under the influence and crashes. This easy bill simply provides that going forward, that first generation of drivers in this new cannabis world and going forward will be provided with a little bit of education about the laws relating to cannabis use and the risks of driving while under the influence of cannabis. After a conversation with our friends at the Motor Vehicle Administration, there was an amendment to add alcohol. So the bill now reads driving while under the influence of cannabis and alcohol. That is the bill before you, colleagues. Other than the Society of Stoned and Drunk Drivers, I'm unaware of any opposition. So I thank you all for your time and your indulgence.
They probably didn't make the deadline for signing up. Yeah, there's no opposition to this. We do have one question. Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'm suspecting this is a mistake because Scott Schellenberger signed up in JPR unfavorable.
Yeah, we never were able to get a handle on what that was about. We think there was a mistake in signing. It certainly didn't come to the committee, and I think it was a mistake probably signing up on a different bill, managed to get this one instead.
Got it. I do actually have another question, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at the MVA's letter of information, and they say that currently Unit 9 of the driver's education curriculum addresses impaired driving, including driving while under the effects of cannabis.
Yes, and we had conversation about that, and that's when they actually suggested adding alcohol to the cannabis. The value and the importance being we need to double down on the education with regard to cannabis now that we're going to have recreational cannabis, and the notion of putting it into statute, the general sentiment was not a bad idea, and to emphasize how important this is going to be going forward with the knowledge that we're certainly going to be having an increase in drunk and drugged driving incidences.
Well,
thank you.
Lord Benjamin and I both went through driver's education in the 20th century, and I have a distinct memory of them teaching us about not drinking and driving back then. Did they stop, or do they just want to clarify that they're concerned about alcohol as well as marijuana?
The impression I had is that they felt the alcohol, and I don't disagree, that the alcohol is as critically important as the cannabis, and that...
I'm just surprised that they thought that that was in question.
Yeah, do you remember the Ohio State Police videos they used to show?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody remember those back in the day? You all are too young to remember any of this.
Yeah, they wouldn't allow.
Delegate Sarah Silberti there, okay.
He filmed them. Okay. Well, it appears there are no further questions for this bill that has no opposition. Thank you very much, Senator Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, colleagues. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Let's turn now to Senate Bill 545. Senator Muse, welcome back to the committee. towing and removing of vehicles. No
Oh, boy.
opposition also.
Very easy, very easy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman Stein and all. I was reminded today that it was 29 years ago when I was elected to the Ways and Means Committee. I was elected to the House and was assigned to the Ways and Means Committee 29 years ago. Say it again.
Started, or was it
I
Sheila?
think that was the year after. It
All
was
right.
way back. That's right. That's right. So I remember back then, and Delegate Healy and Holmes and others that I've served with. It's good to be back here before your wonderful committee, Environment and Transportation. Now, this is not a new bill to this committee. The good thing, one good thing is you've passed it twice. You've passed it twice. And when it got to the Senate, a lot of us are slow in the Senate. And I admit, I missed it too, but I saw the light. And now I'm presenting the bill. So what's the problem? Tow companies encounter the most dangerous elements of society between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. when they are forced to make towed vehicles available during the window of time, this window of time. The number of threats and assaults, because there's a different element now, between 12 and 6 when their cars are repossessed. Many of them are persons who broken laws, they're drug dealers, they're trying to get their cars back. We've had 5 people shot in a few years in which this bill was being considered. We had operators killed. We had people who came to testify during those hours that they have to keep their lot open, that they experience this problem. We need this legislation because private tow contractors are required to have the vehicles available on their lot to be reclaimed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. While those tow contractors who are contracted through the Maryland State Police and other local police authorities have reduced their hours. So SB 545 is by no means asking for the same minimal hours. It's enabling legislation so that those persons who do not want to open their lots that time of night, primarily between the hours of 12 p.m. and 12 a.m. and 6 in the morning, that they don't have to do it. They want to be safe. And I'll close with this. I guess there's no opposition to this because, of course, I've experienced it once too, but I wasn't elected then. If you park your car and it says no parking or it will be towed away, you're going to be towed. I was mad too when I won't tell you how old
Were
I
you
was.
the guy being beat up or the guy beating up on the guy?
I can't confirm nor deny, sir. Not sitting here. No. But trust me, there's a little sentence to breaking a little law, even though it's a small law. We want to protect lives. That's what this bill is about, and that's why it's before you for a third time, knowing that you'll do what is right. And when we get to the Senate side, I'll have some backup.
Okay. First question goes to Delegate Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Muse. It's a pleasure to have you here. I had a quick question,
Yes.
because, I hate to admit it, but I've been told to, and it hurts. And so the question is if as a towing operator, I take a car and I decide that I'm not having 24 hours, and I take somebody's car at 11, I guess the question really becomes, how does then the clock start as it relates to what a tower can charge me for a storage fee per se?
Well, I think that the cost is already established by law, and they can't, go over that.
Well, yeah, that's the 250 or whatever it is that's the
Right,
charge. But then
right.
if I decide that I'm not going to go pick up my car because you don't have those hours,
Gotcha.
I guess the question is are you then charged that storage fee per se?
Well, you have 24 hours to get your car no matter what, and there's no extra fee.
From the time it was
From the time it was towed, that's right. From the time it arrived at the lot, 24 hours, and most people would want their cars back before then.
Yes, thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think this bill was sponsored by Veronica Turner. Who,
That's
I
right.
think, is she in your district?
Yeah, she's my delegate, yes.
Okay, all right. Delegate Addison.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Question to you, I'm going to piggyback on
Yes.
Delegate Boyce's question. You said that the tow yard should be open, they can tow 24 hours.
Right.
Right? But if the tow yard is closed, how am I going to get my car back?
Well, there are places, of course, where you can, of course, they're going to take it to a lot. They'll take it to the lot, and let's say you park there at 12 midnight, and you find your car is gone at 2 a.m., then at 6 a.m. you can get it.
But I don't have a second car. I need my car.
Yeah, I know.
Midnight.
I know. I
So
wish
how am I
I
going to
had
get my
it.
car?
Not until 6 a.m. Oh, and let me say this. This does not mean that everyone will do it. It's enabling legislation. Of course, most places want to make money faster. Everybody's not going to close down. It's just enables them, and it may not be from 12 to 6. They may close from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. It's up to them, but that's the minimum amount of time that we will give them to at least be able to close down should they choose to. And by the way, when the state police, now remember, the state police, now remember something about the state police. Most of the time, your car is towed by the state police. And you know what? You only have from 9 to 6 to get it. So you have many more hours when it's towed to towed by a private contractor. The state police will only from 9 until 6 will you be able to get your car. So now you have another 6 hours to, hopefully to illegally park, and then, 6 hours to reclaim it. And I wish I had all the answers. Here's what I had to weigh it against. Someone who parks and, do what I did, you park and your car's towed, as opposed to somebody who's getting killed and assaulted. And that's what's happening more and more. Matter of fact, the state police just came out with a study showing how many of these owners, or it may not even be an owner, just someone working there, minimum wage, just to give somebody their car, they're being shot, they're killed, lost their life. So I have to kind of weigh and figure out what's the least that I can do, because, what can we do, and what's the minimal risk, and that's where we are.
So, Senator Muse,
Yes.
if it's unsafe for the tow drivers, why are they towing?
And you're right, and I'm not going to say that's the case. I'm going to say if that were the issue, probably they would never tow a car, but they do, and the difference is, did I walk into something, and I'm not being trite about this, I don't know any other way of putting it. If I park my car illegally, I'm taking a risk. If I'm just working there at a lot, I've done nothing at all. And one may have a few hours of trouble getting their car. The others may be affected for the rest of their lives from the death of some of these tow truck drivers between those hours. And that's what I had to weigh it against.
You good?
No. That's why I don't.
I mean, in terms of questions.
That's why I don't ask too many questions, because
No, we love hearing your voice, But if you're done asking questions, you can push your button so I can go to the next person. Unless you have another question.
I'll ask you the question later on.
Please feel free. Yes.
Okay. All right. Delegate Guyton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much. I do have a question, but can I have a point of personal privilege as well? Thank you so much, Senator Muse. We haven't been able to meet in person, but I hear you did a wonderful job defending one of my priority bills over in the Senate, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, given that, yes. No, well, I looked
love
for
that.
him, and he did wonderful.
Thank you.
But I do like the bill, even if you hadn't defended my bill in the Senate. I think this is a common sense public safety bill, and that we do deserve, we do have a responsibility to protect all of our workers, as well as the people, who are going in there at 3 o'clock in the morning, who maybe your car is towed, but you go in and you're not a criminal and you're not going to hurt somebody, but you could be hurt on the way in and out of that facility. But my question, and you spoke to it a tiny bit when you talked about the state police, is we heard a bill not too long ago from Baltimore City where they talked about only being able to claim your car, and I may be misremembering this, between like 9 and 4 o'clock for people to claim.
That's
Can you-
correct.
Can you tell me the different types of
Yes.
towing and why there are different rules for public and private?
The state police, one, they do their own towing. And many of the cars that are picked up by the state police. The state police they can only, and are only open from 9 to 4. So if during those hours of 9 to 6, you get your car towed, you can go and get it only between those hours. The second tier is that the state police also contract with, and that's who we're talking about today. They contract with private tow companies just in case there are problems, et cetera, and they have to move cars. These private contractors are now by law required to be open 24 hours a day. They have to, other things they have to do is pay someone to be there 24 hours a day. Many of them are small businesses, et cetera. And because of what we've seen in a spike of danger around the hours when the cars are being picked up and what's happening to our tow truck drivers, they are asking not even to do what the police do. Because if a state police tows your car and you get off work at 3 or 4 and it's gone, well, you can't get it until 9 o'clock the next morning. What happens now is that, yes, you can, depending on who told it, get it 24 hours. They're asking to shorten that window by 6 hours just for protection. So there are two different tiers, both in terms of the hours are set by the state police, and they've asked us to at least try and give them some relief.
Thank you so much. That cleared up the information that we heard from another hearing before. And I guess it's accurate then to say that the state police have very different rules for their own lots than they have for private lots. And
Correct.
I feel like there was a sentiment that maybe the state police lots weren't open and accessible as long as they should be but certainly it seems reasonable to cut it off at midnight, which is what you're suggesting.
Yes, and in my opinion, as we said to the state police, and they were very friendly, open about this. If you really want to know, they should be the ones open 24 hours a day. They have guns. They are trained. They don't even want to be open and do it. So that's why they had no opposition, to this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator.
You're welcome.
So I remember this bill, we had this, I guess, last year, and I remember the towers being in here talking about just how horrible it is, the assaults and everything else. So definitely understand the need for it. I just was curious, though. I saw Job Opportunities Task Force and Out for Justice in JPR had submitted unfavorable, but they didn't submit any testimony, and they don't seem to have submitted again. Did you have any conversations with them?
Yes, they had one had concern, and they withdrew their opposition. The other just never showed up, and I think their opposition was more technical in terms of, at least with the jobs people, what does this mean in terms of, jobs and that sort of thing, and I couldn't answer that question.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes. And it's good to see Bishop Long over here. I know him since he was a kid.
Well, Bishop Long will have the last question on this bill that has no opponents, signed up opponents.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a bishop, just great to have you here, Senator. And I should not ask these questions. I see my senator is on this bill as well, too.
Yes.
But here's my question. So I'm not going to dare cast aspersions upon all tow companies. They're not all monolithic. But here's my concern. I, too, have been towed before.
Right.
And so when an individual's in an accident, perhaps, right?
Right.
They get no say-so on which tow company gets to tow their car. Oftentimes, the state will call the most expensive tow company, and then that person's now incurring all of these various fees that are racking up on to an already traumatic experience.
Right.
And then, of course, it's hard to secure rides and the various nuances to help secure the vehicle. So my question is, do you feel that this may slightly kind of just hurt, certain communities of...
I'm not sure, and I'll tell you why. First, in terms of the rates are set by the state, and the private contractors actually make $50 less per car than the state. So the police make more money than the state. If you're in an accident, especially if you're on a state highway or a beltway, they're going to pick up your car. And if your car is in such bad condition that you can't drive it away, it's probably not likely you're going to want to get it out that night anyway, if that is the case. So we've tried to think of all scenarios and weigh them, and then say, is there any, what have we found that outweighs lives being lost, et cetera, and they tended to be minute yet concerns. They are concerns.
I completely understand
don't
that,
know.
and again, I take this very seriously.
Yes.
I'm only saying this because, I personally have been through this. I felt at times unsafe going onto a tow lot.
Right.
When they have pit bulls and you got a call to be able to get the
I'm
gate
sorry,
to roll
yes.
back. So, I can
Yeah, I
just
do.
plain devil's advocate just from that particular vantage point. I sat here wanting to be quiet the whole time, but just had to ask that
No,
question.
and I'm glad, because had you asked me one more question, I was going to defrock you and make you a deacon instead of a pastor. I can do, as a bishop, I can do that, I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't know. I heard a little bit of species bigotry there, so just joking.
Thank
I'm afraid
you.
of pit bulls, too. Okay, well, that ends the public hearing on Senate Bill 545. Thank you very much, Senator, and have a wonderful
You all do
evening.
the same. Thank you.
And let's go to our last bill of the afternoon, Senate Bill 718. This is the EEE Committee, and Tyler Abbott is testifying on behalf of MDE. And Tyler, welcome back to the committee. You have 4 minutes when you start.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tyler Abbott. I'm the Director of the Land and Materials Administration at Maryland Department of the Environment, here testifying on Senate Bill 718, Voluntary Cleanup Program Determination and Recordation Deadlines. So a little bit of background on the program. The Voluntary Cleanup Program is a program that was started back in 1997 so that the state could have oversight of hazardous substance cleanup on different properties, oversee the remediation. And also it allows the new owners of the property to have liability relief in the program. So if you're taking on this brownfield redevelopment, that you're not held responsible for the violations of the past, although you're responsible for the cleanup of said material. In short, this bill is to expand the timelines that are in statute for our review period. And so currently, we have 30 days to review an application when it comes in, and we're looking to expand that to 60 days. We then have 30 days for the inculpable person to file that paperwork, bumping that up to 60 days as well. And then if there is further action that's required, it gives us an additional 30 days to review the plan that's submitted in the end. Essentially, this is just giving our team more time to review these documents. These documents come in and they're anywhere from 100 to thousands of pages long. We currently have, well, I guess last year we had 71 new applications, and we suspect that the desire to enter into this program is forever going to keep expanding. So, just giving us more time to review these complicated documents helps us not make mistakes. And I hopefully, I also urge a favorable report from the committee. Well, I guess also there was an amendment that we submitted in coordination with NIOP, and that would just be that the inculpable person needs to present for recordation the document to the courts rather than having that be recorded, because once it's out of the inculpable person's hands, we don't know how long it's going to take in the local jurisdiction to get that on the record.
Okay, we had a question, but we don't. Any other questions for Tyler? Well, I don't see any, so that ends the public hearing.
Thank you very much.
And that ends the public hearing for today. I have to make an announcement, however. I've been ordered to tell you people not to show up before 5:30 and hang out at the bar. And the reason for this is that a lot of those bartenders are running around and setting up for us and stuff like that. So don't mess with them. Oh, I thought you meant, okay, yeah, you can hang out at the bar downstairs, just not upstairs. Right, okay. What a group of lushes, okay. All right, so any announcements here? Apparently not. Okay, Delegate Allen.
The freshman delegation, if you guys could hang out a little bit, we'll just go over the last part of our skit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very cool. That's the kind of announcement I want to hear. Okay, we are adjourned. See you, what? Oh, excuse me.
No, not history, just the non-freshman caucus that includes actually some honorary freshmen will meet in the committee room. Where are you guys going? Y'all going here? Ooh.
Conference room?
No, let's go to conference room. Let's us go to conference room? Okay, all right. So the non-freshmen will go to the back conference room right after we finish here.